Hello everyone, back tuning into today's first video, doing JMA Friday for today's first video. So as always on a Friday, we're having a detailed look at the weather for the coming month with Japanese and CFS V2 models. This is going to take us to the end of February, so we're pretty much running down the clock to the end of winter 2018-19 with the 30-day updates now. So it's been a very strange winter. It started off really mild, it got a lot colder through the middle part of January. And we'll see what the JMA and CFS V2 models are predicting for the final month of winter, or at least meteorological winter of 2018-19 very shortly. Today's second video update will be along later on this afternoon. That's going to be your regular week to 10-day video update. And then tonight we're going to have Terry Scully's February forecast. I think that'll be released around 7 o'clock and should be quite an interesting read. Right, so we're going to start off with the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from the JMA. We're looking at the North Pole view down to start us off. So this is the North Pole of the Northern Hemisphere just here. The mid-latitudes of the Northern Hemisphere are around there. 500 millibars is an area in the absolute high pressure, low pressure being moved around by the jet stream. And blue is extrapolating to low pressure, below average heights. Yellow, orange and red extrapolating to above average heights, which is high pressure. These are broken down into week periods. The first week period will take us from the 1st today through to the 8th of February. So the coming week has below average heights in the Atlantic, but also as a trough sinking down to our south. Then we've got a bit of a blocking signature up to the north and extending over towards the northeast as well. Looks quite unsettled. The upshot is we're on the cold side of the jet stream there. Jets going down there. So it is rather unsettled and probably quite cold as well in the week ahead, although there could be some milder air coming in from the Atlantic at times, but overall rather cold and unsettled to start us off. Then we go through to week 2. This takes us from the 8th through to the 15th of February. And we find that we've got above average heights again out in the Atlantic to our north and northwest, also extending over towards Scandinavia, below average heights to the south. And so you'd expect the jet stream to be down here somewhere. And we should be pulling in quite cold air, potentially from an easterly direction with that. So staying cold, actually, into the second week of February, albeit with more of a high-pressure influence, so it's probably quite a lot drier. But it would be pretty cold, I think, with the winds coming in from an easterly direction. And then we're going through to weeks 3 and 4. This takes us from the 15th of February to the first day of March, first day of meteorological spring as well. And it looks like we keep things pretty cold, really. This is a cold update from the JMA. This week we've got above average heights now centering around Greenland with below average heights to the south and southeast of the UK. Again, you would expect us to be pulling in cold air from a northeasterly or potentially easterly direction. So it looks like the JMA actually turns things colder into the second half of February, weeks 3 and 4. Looks like it's turning things colder there and more unsettled. With the below average heights to our south, you would expect the risk of some quite significant snowfalls to be coming through. This has been an ongoing feature of this winter, though, that the long range models have been very keen on northern blocking and sort of proper blocking areas of high pressure within the northern latitudes, whereas we've been struggling to get this northern blocking, particularly centering it around Greenland. We just haven't managed to get proper Greenland blocking in yet. That's not to say we won't get Greenland blocking in, but we have to be a little bit sceptical about what this is showing, because it has been quite a strong signal pretty much since we had the sudden stratospheric warming at the end of December. The long range models have been wanting to create significant northern blocking and focus it around Greenland. Haven't really had that. It's not to say that we won't, but we just do need to keep a little bit cautious about it, I think. But this is a cold and wintry February from JMA this week. Let's have a look at the mid-latitude and tropical view in terms of the temperature and precipitation anomaly. So the British are just here in the top right-hand corner of the chart as you are looking at it. A reminder of the week 1 500 millibar height anomaly. You can't see the polar region, by the way. That's off the chart up here. But of course, we're just looking at that view down. So a reminder of the week 1 500 millibar height anomaly with below average heights in the Atlantic, but also going to the south and southeast of the UK, therefore on the cold side of the jet, looking rather cold and unsettled in the week ahead. Temperature anomalies, therefore, are forecast to be below average. It's a colder than average week coming up for the UK and for most parts of Central Europe as well. Temperature anomalies around 1 to 2 degrees below average. Precipitation anomalies in the week ahead, going from the 1st to the 8th of February. A little bit drier than average, so not overly unsettled, which is perhaps a bit of a surprise given we've got that trough of low pressure to our west and south. You might have expected to be a little bit more unsettled than that showing, but I think rather changeable and quite cold in the week ahead. Then we go through to week 2. This one takes us from the 8th through to the 15th of February. With again the above average heights in the Atlantic to our north and northwest, extending up to the north as well, over to there, and also you can see it across Scandinavia just there. With below average heights to the south, we're pulling in, you would have thought, quite cold winds from an east or maybe even northeasterly direction. Temperature anomalies are forecast to be colder than average for England and Wales, a little bit closer to average for Scotland and Northern Ireland. You're close to that ridge there, so perhaps a little bit close to average Scotland, Northern Ireland, but slightly colder than average week being forecast for England and Wales. Again, most parts of Europe are being forecast to be colder than average in the week week 2, I should say, which is the 8th to 15th. And the precipitation anomaly is coming out rather drier than average as well, so quite dry, but fairly cold, especially for England and Wales in week 2. And then we go through to week 3 and 4, taking us from the 15th of February to the 1st of March, first day of meteorological spring, with below average heights to our south. And you can't really see it now because it's centred over Greenland, and that's off the chart, but above average heights, a blocking feature centring around Greenland, which you would have thought is going to be turning things even colder and potentially even more wintry into the second half of February. Temperature anomalies are indeed going more widely colder than average across the UK. This is a cold second half to February being forecast here. Most parts of Europe again are coming out colder than average in the second half of February. Still rather dry. It looks more unsettled to the south of the UK. Above average precipitation down to our south for the UK and Ireland. Our precipitation is coming out a little bit drier than average. So it's a relatively dry February being forecast here, but cold. Especially so, I think, in the second half of the month when we get that Greenland blocking beginning to turn up. This is how the CFS V2 is looking in comparison. So this is the week 1, 500 millibar height anomaly. It's taken us from the 1st to the 7th of February. Very similar to what the JMA is showing, with below average heights to the west, but also to the south. A blocking signal to our north, and particularly to our northeast. A jet stream is going down there, so we've got a dip in the jet on the cold side of the jet stream, looking therefore rather cold and rather unsettled in the week ahead. Then we're going through to week 2. It takes us from the 8th to the 14th of February, with above average heights setting up over Scandinavia and below average heights out in the Atlantic. Now, there's what model is going to be showing is a milder than average week, because it's going to be bringing up kind of like a southeasterly wind, rather like that. So the model will look at that and think that it's going to be milder than average there for the second week of February. Of course, it would only take a very, 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 very slight change to start turning those southeasterlies into easterlies. So I'm going to show you the temperature in a moment. The model will be showing a milder than average week there for week 2, but it's a strong signal for a Scandinavian high. All you've got to do is start running some of this energy southwards from that trough in the Atlantic, running that into towards Spain, Portugal, and the Med, and those southeasterlies will turn easterly, and you'll start to drag in very cold air from the northeast. So that's one of those that could go either way. And although the model will be showing milder than average for week 2, it could be a lot colder. And the same is true for week 3 as well. This is the 15th to the 21st of February. Very strong blocking signal centred between Greenland and Scandinavia. Below average heights are running to the south. Again, the model will probably be showing milder than average because it'll think that the wind is coming in from a southeasterly direction. But again, all we need to do is take this low pressure in the Atlantic, run it through the Med, and by doing that, we will force in an easterly wind. So both of those weeks could be cold, potentially very cold actually, with a very slight adjustment. And then we go through to week 4. This one takes us from the 22nd to the 28th of February, still with quite a strong northern blocking signal. The only difference is that the ridge is pushing down across the UK and western parts of Europe, with below average heights in the middle of the Atlantic and below average heights setting up across the southeast of Europe as well. So that's going to be mainly dry and settled, and potentially starting to turn a bit milder, perhaps starting to drag up some mild air from the Atlantic there towards the end of February. It's a very strange update from the CFS V2 today, but I have to say. This is how the temperature anomalies are looking for week 1. This is the 1st to the 7th of February. Colder than average temperature anomalies in the week ahead. So both the JMA and the CFS are in agreement about colder than average conditions to start us off. But then we go through to week 2. This is where it's going milder than average. I thought it would, and we see confirmation of that. This is the 8th to the 14th of February. Above average temperature anomaly is there. But again, bear in mind, let's go back to that week 2 500 by high anomaly. That's it. Bear in mind, I'll take a very, very slight adjustment to turn those southeasterlies to easterlies, and then week 2 will be a lot colder. Week 3 is also being forecast to be milder than average. Again, because the model is looking at it and thinking we're bringing up southeasterly winds. Just a slight tilt in the wind direction would turn those southeasterlies to easterlies, and it would be a lot colder there from the 15th to 21st of February. And then this is probably fairly reasonable. This is the 22nd to 28th of February. It's coming out milder than average again. In great contrast, of course, to what the JMA is showing for this second half of February, I have to say. It's coming out a little bit warmer than average, and with high pressure sort of over the top of the UK by then, that's probably okay. Although even then, you can expect some quite significant night frost. So it's on a temperature anomaly point of view, this is a mild, even very mild update for February from the CFS V2. But again, I'm very, very dubious about it compared to the 500 millibar height anomalies. And then finally, we've got precipitation anomalies. So week 1 from the 1st to the 7th of February is coming out close to average for England and Wales, a little bit drier than average for Scotland. Week 2 is close to average with precipitation. Notice it's very dry across much of Central Europe as well. Week 3, close to average with precipitation once more. So I don't think it's got a particularly strong signal for precipitation during February. And then that was week 3. Week 4 is again coming out with close to average precipitation. Once again, I don't think the CFS has a very strong signal for precipitation during February. Now we've got a bit of a problem here between the JMA and the CFS. So they're both in agreement on a relatively cold and changeable start for the first week of February. So that's okay. Things are going to be things are cold now. They're going to stay cold to the start of next week before becoming a bit milder, and it will turn increasingly unsettled next week as well. It's from week 2 onwards that we've got problems. So the JMA wants to keep it generally cold, with the blocking increasingly becoming focused towards Greenland in the middle and second half of the month, which would potentially turn things very cold from the north to northeast. The CFS, I think, is off on a bit of a tangent today. That is building up a big blocking area of high pressure over Scandinavia, but it wants to keep the winds on a southerly to southeasterly tilt, which looks a bit strange. If it did come off, it probably would be relatively mild with high pressure to the northeast and low pressure in the Atlantic. You probably would draw up the winds from the central Mediterranean, but I'm very dubious that we would keep that going kind of like for 2 or 3 weeks. So my suspicion is that quite quickly, if that Scandinavian high did build up, we will get the wind into the east, and we're pulling cold air from an east to northeasterly direction. That's how I would interpret the 500 millibar height anomaly from the CFS. So between the two, I think they're both going, in terms of their pressure distribution, anyway, their heights, which extrapolates the pressure, I think they're both going for the chance of quite a cold February. but with the caveat that the CFS is actually quite mild with its temperature anomaly, in disagreement with the JMA, which is generally cold with its temperature anomaly for February. So try and make sense of it all. It is very hard to work out what is going on there between the JMA and the CFS this week. It's indicative of this winter, which has been a very complicated and very confused winter indeed. But overall, I think we could be shaping up for some quite cold weather at times during February. I don't mean it'll be continuously cold. In fact, it definitely won't, because next week is going to go milder for a while. But I think overall probably relatively cold signals for February, particularly the second half of February, with that Greenland high being hinted at by the JMA. Right, that's it for today's first video update. We'll be back this afternoon looking at the weather for the next week to 10 days. Come back for that then. Terry's Gold is February forecast tonight. That's it for now, and thanks for watching.